Commander Is walked through the halls of his warship with slow, heavy steps. His 4 legs made a clicking sound on the metal floor. He was tall, covered in dark blue scales, and his eyes glowed a soft yellow in the dim light. For 300 years he had served the collective. He had fought in 17 wars across 6 star systems. He had killed thousands of enemies and lost count of how many soldiers had died under his command. He felt nothing about any of it. They were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Everyone knew this. They were strong, fast, and smart, but more than that, they had no fear. Long ago, the scientists had changed their species. They had removed the part of the brain that created fear. Fear made soldiers weak. Fear made them run away. Fear made them hesitate at the wrong moment. So they had simply cut it out of their blood, their bones, their very souls. Is had never been afraid in his entire life. He did not know what fear felt like. He only knew that other species had it, and it made them lesser. Today he was meeting his new allies. The Galactic Council had ordered a joint attack against the Devourer fleet. The Devourers were terrible creatures, half machine and half monster. They ate entire worlds. They consumed everything, flesh and metal and stone. They could not be reasoned with. They could only be destroyed. Is had requested the best soldiers from the allied races. Instead, the council had sent him humans. He entered the meeting room and saw them for the first time. They were so small, so soft. Their skin had no scales, no armor, nothing to protect them. They stood on only 2 legs, which seemed unstable and foolish. Their eyes were round and strange, full of expressions that Is did not understand. There were about 50 of them, all wearing the gray uniform of the United Earth Navy. They were talking and laughing with each other, making jokes that Is could not follow. Some of them were eating snacks from small bags. One of them was showing pictures on a small device, and the others were making loud noises of amusement. This was his elite fighting force. These were the soldiers who would help him defeat the Devourers. Is felt what he always felt, nothing. A human female stepped forward. She was of average height for her species, with black hair cut short and dark eyes that met his gaze without looking away. There was a small smile on her face. "Commander Is," she said. "I am Captain Park. This is my second-in-command lieutenant." The male beside her nodded. He was slightly taller, with a serious face and calm eyes. Unlike the others, he was not smiling. He was watching Is carefully, studying him the way a hunter studies prey. "We are honored to fight alongside the," Captain Park continued. "We have heard many stories about your people. Your victories are legendary." "Stories are not important," Is replied. His voice was deep and cold. "Only results matter. Can your soldiers follow orders? Can they fight without running away? Can they die without screaming?" The room went quiet. The humans stopped laughing. They all turned to look at their commander. Captain Park's smile did not change. "My soldiers can do all of those things, Commander, but I hope it will not come to dying. We prefer to win and survive." "Survival is not always possible in war." "No," she agreed, "but we try anyway. That is what humans do." Is looked at Lieutenant. "And you, do you have anything to say?" Was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke in a low, steady voice. "Commander, you asked if we can follow orders. The answer is yes, but we also think for ourselves. We adapt. We change. We find new ways to win when the old ways fail. I have read about you are perfect soldiers. You never make mistakes." "That is correct. But the Devourers learn. They change. They adapt." Paused. "Sometimes being perfect is not enough. Sometimes you need to be crazy." Is did not understand this. Crazy was a word for broken minds, for soldiers who could not function. Why would anyone want to be crazy? He decided that humans were strange and probably useless. But the council had given him these soldiers, so he would use them. They would likely die quickly. He had seen many species die quickly. "You will follow my orders," Is said. "You will fight where I tell you to fight. You will retreat when I tell you to retreat. If you do these things, some of you might survive. If you do not, you will all die. Do you understand?" Captain Park nodded. "We understand, Commander." "Good. We leave for the system in 6 hours. The Devourers are attacking a colony world there. 8 million civilians are waiting for us to save them." He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, Captain Park spoke again. "Commander." He stopped but did not turn around. "My people have a saying. It goes like this: courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being afraid and doing the right thing anyway." Is considered this. It made no sense to him. If you had no fear, you did not need courage. You simply acted. The way was better. "Fear is weakness," he said. "My people removed it long ago. That is why we are the greatest warriors in the galaxy." He walked out of the room without looking back. Behind him, Lieutenant leaned close to Captain Park. "He does not understand," said quietly. Park watched the door close. Her smile was gone now, replaced by something harder and sadder. "No," she agreed. "He does not. But maybe, before this war is over, he will learn." She did not know how right she was. None of them did. The war had not yet begun, and already everything was about to change. The Devourer fleet came out of hyperspace like a swarm of black insects. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Their ships were ugly things, made of metal and flesh twisted together. They did not look like they were built. They looked like they had grown, like tumors in the dark spaces between stars. He stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Vigilant Star. Around him, his officers worked in perfect silence. Every movement was precise. Every order was followed instantly. There was no panic, no excitement, no emotion of any kind. This was how they fought: clean, efficient, perfect. Below them, the colony world of 4 turned slowly. It was a green and blue planet, beautiful and full of life. 8 million people lived there. Farmers, teachers, children, families. They were all looking up at the sky right now, watching the battle that would decide if they lived or died. All ships form attack pattern Alpha is commanded. Target the lead vessels. Fire on my mark. The warships moved into position. They were fewer than the Devourers, but they were stronger. Their weapons were better. Their armor was thicker. In a straight fight, they would win. Fire. Plasma cannons lit up the darkness of space. The first wave of Devourer ships exploded, their twisted bodies breaking apart in silent flashes of light. Is watched the destruction without feeling. This was expected. This was the plan. Then something unexpected happened. A second wave of Devourers emerged from hyperspace. These ships were different. Their hulls glowed with a strange energy that is had never seen before. When the plasma cannons hit them, the shots bounced away. The energy shields were new. The Devourers had learned. Adjust frequency is ordered. Target their engine sections. The cannons fired again. Some shots got through, but not enough. The Devourer ships kept coming. They moved in patterns that the computers could not predict. They split apart and reformed. They attacked from angles that should not have been possible. 30 minutes into the battle, the first cruiser was destroyed. Then another. Then 2 more. Is watched his ships die on the tactical display. Each loss was a red light going dark. Each light was 1,000 soldiers gone forever. He still felt nothing. But for the first time in a very long time, he understood that he might lose. "Commander," it was his tactical officer, a young named N. "At current rate of losses, our fleet will be destroyed in 4 hours. The Devourers will reach the planet in 6. We cannot win this battle." Is considered the numbers. They were correct. The mathematics did not lie. He had fought 17 wars and he had never lost. Today that record would end. Then a human voice came over the communication channel. "Commander this is Lieutenant." Is turned to the communication screen. His face appeared calm and focused. Behind him Is could see the bridge of a human ship. There were fires burning. Smoke filled the air. Humans were running back and forth, shouting orders. It looked like chaos. "What do you want, Lieutenant?" "We have been watching the Devourer formation. There is a gap near their main carrier ship. It is small, but it is there." Is checked his tactical display. He saw the gap. It was barely large enough for a few ships to pass through. "That gap is a trap," he said. "The Devourers want us to attack there. Any ship that enters will be surrounded and destroyed." "Yes," agreed. "You are correct. It is a trap, but the carrier is their command ship. It controls the others. If we destroy it, their fleet will lose coordination. They will become confused, easy to kill. The ships that attack the carrier will not survive. That is an unacceptable loss." There was silence on the channel. Then Captain Park's voice came through, cutting across the static and noise of battle. "Commander, my people volunteer for this mission. All of us. Every ship in the Earth Navy contingent." Is felt something strange, a tightness in his chest, a strange heaviness in his limbs. He did not know what it was. He had never felt it before. "You would all die," he said. "Yes, probably, but the colony has 8 million people. If we do not stop the Devourers here, those people will definitely die. There will be no probably for them. They will just be gone." "This is illogical. You value your own lives. All species value their own lives." "We do," Park said. "We value our lives very much, but we also value other things, things that are bigger than us, things that matter more than whether we live or die." Is did not understand. They fought for victory, for survival, for the collective. They did not throw their lives away for strangers. That was not efficient. That was not logical. But the mathematics were clear. Without the carrier destroyed, everyone would die. The colony, the fleet, everything. "Very well," Is said. "You may proceed with your attack." "Thank you, Commander." The channel went silent. On the tactical display, Is watched 12 small human ships break away from the main fleet. They turned toward the gap in the Devourer formation. They accelerated to full speed. They were flying straight toward death. And for reasons he could not explain, Is could not look away. The 12 human ships flew into hell. Is watched from the command deck of the Vigilant Star. His yellow eyes did not blink. His 4 legs did not move. He stood completely still as the humans dove into the Devourer formation. The trap closed around them immediately. Devourer ships came from every direction. Weapons fire filled the space with light and death. On the tactical display, the 12 human ships became 12 small dots surrounded by hundreds of red markers. Any reasonable force would have retreated. Any logical commander would have called off the attack. The mathematics were clear. Survival was impossible. The humans did not retreat. Lieutenant's ship was in the front. It was a small vessel, fast and weak, designed for scouting rather than combat. Its shields failed in the first minute. Its weapons were barely strong enough to scratch the Devourer armor, but did not slow down. His ship weaved through the enemy formation, dodging attacks that should have been impossible to dodge. He fired at engines, at weapon ports, at any weak point he could find. He was screaming something over the open channel. Is did not understand the words. Later, he learned it was an old Earth battle song. Behind, the other human ships followed. They fought without formation, without pattern, without logic. They attacked from strange angles. They rammed into enemies when their weapons failed. They used their own ships as weapons when nothing else worked. It was chaos, it was madness, it was beautiful. Is felt the strange tightness in his chest grow stronger. His hearts were beating faster. There was a cold feeling in his limbs that he had never experienced before. Something was wrong with him. Something was different. On the tactical display, Lieutenant's ship reached the Devourer carrier. It was huge, the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and armor and dark, pooling flesh. There was no way a small scout ship could damage something so massive. Did not try to damage it. He flew directly into it. His ship hit the carrier at full speed. The explosion tore through the enemy's command section. For a moment, the carrier's lights flickered, its weapons stopped firing, its shields dropped. And Lieutenant was gone. He stood frozen. He had seen soldiers die before, thousands of them, millions across 17 wars. He had never felt anything. Now, watching this human fly willingly into death, he felt something he could not name. The other human ships used sacrifice. They poured fire into the hole he had created. 2 more ships crashed into the carrier, making the damage worse. Captain Park's cruiser stayed back, coordinating the others, calling out targets and weak points in a calm, steady voice. "All ships focus fire on Section 12, she said. "The power core is exposed. If we hit it, the whole thing goes down." Her ship was burning. Is could see it on the display. Fires were spreading through every deck. The hull was breaking apart. Her crew was dying around her. But her voice never changed. She gave orders until the very end, calm and clear, like she was just running a normal training exercise. "Impact in 30 seconds, she said. "All ships disengage and retreat. You have done enough. The rest is up to the commander. It has been an honor." Her cruiser fired one final volley. Then the Devourers destroyed it. 8 human ships were gone now. Only 4 remained, and they were all badly damaged. But behind them, the Devourer carrier was dying. Its power core exploded in a massive fireball that consumed a dozen nearby enemy ships. Without the carrier, the Devourer fleet lost its coordination. The ships that had moved so perfectly began to wander and crash into each other. Is found his voice. "All vessels attack now, full assault, destroy everything." His fleet surged forward. The battle that had been hopeless was now winnable. The Devourers, confused and directionless, fell apart under the assault. By the time the reinforcements arrived 2 hours later, the enemy fleet was destroyed. It should have felt satisfied. Victory was achieved. The colony was saved. 8 million people would live because of what happened today. But all he could think about was Lieutenant, screaming a battle song as he flew into death. All he could think about was Captain Park, calm and steady while her ship burned around her. All he could feel was that strange, cold tightness in his chest. His officers celebrated around him. They spoke of the victory, of the tactics, of how the human sacrifice had created the opening they needed. They spoke of it like it was just another factor in the equation. Is could not speak at all. He kept seeing the human ships diving into certain death. He kept hearing Park's last words. He kept feeling something that his species had removed from their blood 3,000 years ago. For the first time in his 300-year life, Commander Is was beginning to understand what fear felt like. And it terrified him in ways he could not explain. The survivors were brought aboard the Vigilant Star 3 hours after the battle ended. There were only 23 of them, 23 humans out of the original 50. The rest were dead, scattered across the darkness of space in broken ships and burned bodies. Is when I meet them personally. He had never done this before. In 17 wars, he had never greeted the survivors of Allied forces. There was no logical reason to do so. It served no tactical purpose. But he went anyway. The humans were in the medical bay. Most of them were lying on beds, covered in bandages and connected to machines. Some had lost arms or legs. Some had burns on their faces. One young soldier was crying quietly in the corner, held by an older woman who whispered soft words into his ear. Is looked at them and felt the strange coldness in his chest again. It was stronger now. It had not gone away since the battle ended. A small human female stood up when she saw him. She was covered in burns. Half of her face was red and swollen. Her left arm hung at her side, useless and broken. But she stood straight and tall like a soldier should. "Commander Is," she said. Her voice was rough and tired. "Sergeant Myra reporting. Captain Park's final order was to hold the line. We held it." Is looked at her. She was so small, so broken. She should be lying down, resting, healing. But instead she was standing before him, making her report like nothing was wrong. "You did," he said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, quieter than usual. "You held the line. The colony is safe. 8 million people will live because of what your people did today." Nodded. There was no pride in her eyes, no celebration, just exhaustion and something else, something deep and sad. "Captain Park would be glad to hear that," she said. "Your captain," is paused. He did not know how to say what he wanted to say. He had never needed to say such things before. She knew she would die. Lieutenant knew, you all knew, and yet you attacked anyway. "Yes, sir." "Why?" Looked at him for a long moment. Then she slowly sat down on a nearby bed. Her body was shaking with the effort of standing. Is realized she had only stood up to show respect to him. She had pushed through her pain just to greet him properly. "Permission to speak freely, Commander." "Granted." Took a deep breath. "We were afraid, sir, every single one of us. When we flew into that formation, when the enemy ships surrounded us, when we saw Lieutenant crash into that carrier, we were all terrified." Is leaned forward. "You were afraid, truly." "Yes, our hearts were pounding. Our hands were shaking. Some of us were crying inside our helmets." Smiled a small, sad smile. "Fear is the most human thing there is, Commander. We have lived with it since we were animals hiding from bigger animals in caves. It never goes away. It is always with us." "But you did not run. You did not freeze. You attacked even though you were afraid." "Yes." "How? I do not understand. My people removed fear because it causes soldiers to fail. It makes them weak. But you were afraid and you still fought. You were afraid and you still won." Was quiet for a moment. Behind her, the other survivors were listening. Some of them were nodding slowly. "Commander," she said finally, "fear is not the enemy. Fear is not weakness. Fear is just information. It tells you what matters. It tells you what you care about, what you love, what you would die to protect." She pointed toward the viewport, where the green and blue planet hung in the darkness. "Those 8 million people mattered to us, not because we knew them, not because they would thank us or reward us. They mattered because they were alive and they wanted to stay alive and we could help them. Our fear reminded us of that. Our fear told us that their lives were worth more than our own safety." Is tried to understand. It was so different from everything he had ever known. They fought because fighting was their purpose. They won because winning was the objective. They did not think about the people they saved. They only thought about the mission. "Captain Park said something to me when we first met," he said slowly. "She said that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being afraid and doing the right thing anyway." Nodded. That sounds like her. She believed that very strongly. She always said that true bravery is not about having no fear. True bravery is about choosing to act despite your fear. Anyone can be brave when there is nothing to lose. Real courage is when you have everything to lose and you do the right thing anyway. He stood in silence for a long time. Around him, the medical machines beeped softly. The surviving humans watched him with their strange, expressive eyes. "I think," he said finally, "that I am beginning to understand." He looked at his hands. His scales were dark blue, thick and strong. His body was designed for war. His mind was designed for perfect, emotionless calculation. But somewhere deep inside him, something was changing. Something that his species had tried to destroy 3,000 years ago was waking up again. And he did not want to stop it. The war lasted 7 more months after the Battle of 4. Is fought in every major engagement. He led his fleet from the front, destroying devourer ships across a dozen star systems. The High Council praised his victories. They called him a hero. They said he was the greatest commander their species had ever produced. But Is knew the truth. He was not the same commander he had been before. Something had broken inside him, or maybe something had finally woken up. He was not sure which. All he knew was that everything felt different now. When battles went wrong, his heart beat faster. When soldiers died, he felt a heavy weight in his chest. When the casualty reports came in, he read every name instead of just the numbers. He started to imagine the faces behind those names, the families they had left behind, the futures they would never have. He requested human forces for every joint operation. His superiors questioned this decision. Humans were weak, they said. Humans were fragile. Their technology was primitive. They were so short that they barely had time to become proper soldiers before they died of old age. Is could not explain why he wanted them. He only knew that fighting beside humans made him feel something. And after 300 years of feeling nothing, that something was more valuable than any weapon. Sergeant Myra was promoted to lieutenant after 4. She served on Iz's flagship for the rest of the war. At first, she was quiet around him, respectful, professional. She gave her reports and followed her orders and said nothing else. But slowly, over many months, they began to talk. Told him about Earth. She told him about her family, about the small village where she grew up, about the mountains she used to climb when she was young. She told him about human food, human music, human art. She told him about love and loss and hope and grief. Is listened to everything. He had never listened to anyone before. He had never cared about the stories of other species. But stories were different. They were full of emotion and meaning. They made him feel things he had never felt before. The medical officers noticed the change in him. They ran tests. They scanned his brain, his heart, his blood. They found nothing physically wrong. One doctor suggested that his emotional regulators might be damaged. It was a rare condition, seen perhaps once in a million. The recommended treatment was surgery. Is refused. He did not want to be fixed. He wanted to feel. On the day the war ended, Is stood on the observation deck of a human space station orbiting Earth. He had never been to the human before. He had never wanted to visit. But now, looking down at the small blue planet, he understood why humans fought so hard. It was beautiful, so fragile and so precious. Lieutenant stood beside him. She was healthier now. Her burns had healed, though the scars remained. Her arm was still weak, but she could use it again. She was wearing her dress uniform, clean and pressed, with medals on her chest. "You are different now," she said. "The other have noticed. They say you have become emotional." "They are correct," Is admitted. "I have changed. I feel things now that I never felt before. Joy when we win, sorrow when we lose, pain when good soldiers die." He paused, looking down at the planet below. "And fear. I feel fear now. When the battle is dangerous, when the odds are against us, when I might lose the people under my command, I am afraid." Studied him with her dark eyes. "Does it bother you, the fear?" Is thought about the question. It was a good question, a human question. "For 17 wars I was perfect," he said. "I was efficient, precise, emotionless. I never lost a battle I was supposed to win. I never questioned an order. I never hesitated." He turned to face her. "But I also never understood why any of it mattered. Victory was just an objective. Survival was just an outcome. I fought because fighting was my purpose. Nothing more, nothing less." He took a deep breath. The air on the human station smelled strange, full of life and warmth. "Your people taught me something, Lieutenant. You taught me that courage is not about having no fear. Courage is about feeling fear and fighting anyway because something matters more than your own survival. Love, duty, hope, the chance to protect something precious." Smiled softly. "Captain Park used to say things like that." "She did, on the day we met. I did not understand her then. I thought she was weak for caring about such things, but now I know the truth. She was the strongest warrior I ever met, stronger than any, stronger than me." They stood in silence, watching Earth turn slowly below them. "I felt fear for the first time fighting alongside humanity," Is said. "And it did not make me weaker. It made me more aware, more alive, more connected to the people I fight beside and the people I fight to protect. Lieutenant reached out and placed her small hand on his armored arm. It was a simple gesture, meaningless from a tactical perspective. It served no purpose. But somehow, impossibly, it meant everything. "Welcome to being human," she said quietly. "It is hard, it hurts, but it is also beautiful, and you never have to face it alone." Is looked at her hand on his arm. Then he looked at her face, and strong and full of warmth. For the first time in his 300-year life, he smiled. "No," he agreed, "I do not think I will ever be alone again." Below them, Earth continued to turn. The war was over. The devourers were defeated. Billions of lives were saved. And one old soldier, who had never known what it meant to feel, finally understood what it meant to be truly alive. The end.